That's why I've been taken great pain to say names, and how you go back and check them is entirely up to you as an investigative journalist. But I don't believe in this anonymous caper. Don't believe in it at all.
Yeah, it's very strange, I find.
I've given you that. I mean, look, reason why, and I'm being open here now, and I hope I'm not playing Ivan Dean's hand for him, but he went to great pains now to find out who that lady from Canberra was. No one could find her. No. The reason given, have you tried to find out who it was? Well, I bet you can't. Mm-hmm. I'll give you 50 to 1 odds right now. You can't. Dean tried. What happened? That lady that reported that on the 23rd of February, first saying she saw that animal on the Christmas Day 205, she claims that she wasn't aware that there weren't any foxes in Tasmania. But I've just stated, well, what about all the fox-free signs? What about... I mean, there was a lot of publicity. I mean, at that time, there was huge amounts of publicity. You nearly picked the paper up every day and there was a fox story in it, somewhere or another. So, I mean, I just don't buy that at all. And later on, Ivan Dean went to the Fox Task Force, it was then. And as you well know, if you ring up and report a fox sighting, especially if you rang up from Canberra, by the time they had finished with you, mate, they would know the colour of your underpants. They know exactly everything about you. There's a standard form that's filled in. Now, no one knows who this Canberra lady is. No one knows. No one's ever been able to determine who she is. So I have great difficulty with that. I mean, once again, it's this cloak and dagger stuff. I mean, I'll defy you to find out who that lady was. Make it a pet project.
Oh, I'll have a go.
Yeah. Find out. Get onto the Fox Task Force.
Yeah.
Dean's tried. He can't.
Mm-hmm.
And by his methods, and I know how Dean operates, if Ivan Dean can't find out, no one can. So, which then leads us what? To the Glen Esk Road.
Glen Esk Road.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh dear. Oh dear. There are more holes in that. Seriously, more changes of story in that. I mean, what I firmly believe is what happened is this. That fox was discovered by the 3 agricultural workers, namely Michael Beams, Jason Powell, and one Joshua Leeson. Somewhere completely different from where they claim they found it. I believe it was found in a certain farmer's gateway at Epping, on the side of the road. This is information I've heard from people that heard two-way radio conversations on that morning between these people involved. Now, it's up to you as an investigative journalist to chase this down. I mean, I doubt very much whether Powell, Beams, or especially Joshua Leeson will talk to you, because they now know they are implicated in possibly moving evidence. Now, the story that I got from people that overheard these two-way radio conversations was that the farmer didn't want that fox anywhere near his property. He didn't want the Fox Task Force crawling over his property. So he said to the boys, get rid of it. I don't care what you do with it, get rid of it. They took it up Glen Esk Road. Joshua Leeson was very nervous. He just said, throw the damn thing in the bushes. I don't want anything to do with this. No, Michael Beam said, we must pursue it. We must alert the task force. We must tell them we've found this fox on the side of the road. Joshua Leeson became very nervous. Joshua Leeson didn't want anything to do with it. There is then, which confirms what I suspect, there was then an interview done with Roshan McCann on ABC Radio that evening. The guy, it was Jason Powell that conducted that interview. Unbeknownst, he worked under the name of Reynard or Foxy Loxy or something. I'm not sure at the time exactly. I've got it in my file there, but I can't be... Whatever his name, whatever the pseudonym he operated on was, it's irrelevant, really. But I believe these boys then realised that they'd got themselves into a bit of a situation by moving that fox and claiming that they found it where they found it. That then opens a giant can of worms, because I have from a very reliable police officer that I trust, and it isn't Michael Otley, it's another police officer in the Longford area, that was part of information that was put forward over these two-way tracking of radio conversations, that actually Michael Beams rang his employee, one Joshua Leeson, that evening of the 1st of August and said, Joshua, if you do not ring the Depeewee today and tell them that you found that fox on the side of the road, you actually run over it, you don't need to turn up for work tomorrow. Now, that's a pretty serious allegation to make against one Michael Beams. I have it from authority. If it got to the point of going to court, I'm prepared to stand up under oath and name that policeman involved. I believe there was a conspiracy there. They shifted that fox, and I believe that they got themselves implicated in it, and that's one of the reasons now they've clammed up and don't want to talk.
Why didn't the policeman himself investigate it further?
Well, the police are not allowed anywhere near it. Never have been. The police... You cite me one incident since this fox issue started where the police, other than the initial police inquiry in 2001, have been allowed anywhere near a fox incident. There isn't any. Why? Because they were under instructions from the then Minister Llewellyn. Llewellyn only lost his position as Minister, was replaced by Judy Jackson, then Steve Cons, then back to Green. But as Police Minister, I am reasonably sure that Llewellyn offered that instruction. Police keep away with it. Keep right away from it. Doesn't concern the police. It's nothing to do with them.
Do the Parks and Wildlife Rangers have that sort of authority to investigate?
Well, actually, believe it or not, Parks and Wildlife have got, I believe the Rangers have got more authority than an actual police constable. I mean, they can enter your home and do an on-the-spot search without a warrant, police can't. Under the statutes, apparently they have, yes, they have more power. But, I mean, you cite one incident to me where the police have been involved in any of this evidence. There isn't any, other than the initial 2001 investigation, to which Llewellyn didn't get the results that he wanted. He didn't get the outcome that he wanted. Anyway, that's another story. So I believe that the boys, and I mean, whether you can get any of those three guys to talk to you, I doubt it very much. Michael Beams, look, there's all sorts of theories why they became involved in it. I mean, look, from jobs hard to find in the Midlands, from appeasing farmers where you do spreading contracting, 1080 bait laying, there's all sorts of possibilities there. What I do know is that that fox was moved. I think even the Depeewee accept that now today.
I think they do.
Yep.
I have heard that Michael Beams himself moved it and told them to find it there and report it, but I don't know.
Well, whether the three of them were complicit in moving it, or whether only one was, it doesn't alter the fact that that fox was not killed on roadside Glenesk.
Where did it come from?
Well, good question. You know, the DNA has never ever been revived. This is one problem I have again with the task or eradication program. There's a guy in Western Australia called Oliver Berry that did a huge amount of DNA mapping of foxes. In fact, the statement was made back in Chris Ems's time. We can basically tell which paddock the fox came out of. Correct? I mean, why have we never had any DNA released of this DNA mapping released? Where did that fox come from? Look, I have my suspicions. I have had names even offered to me. Names offered to me. I'm not prepared to go that far in this interview at this stage until a lot more things have been made clear to me. But one thing I do know is that fox was not killed roadside there on Glenesk Road. I mean, Joshua Leeson was there on the morning of the 1st of August 2006. He was interviewed by Nick Mooney, Mark Mackay. I believe came along afterwards Gary came along afterwards, head of wild management, Gary Davies, Wildlife Management Services. They interviewed these guys. That morning Joshua Leeson said nothing. That morning, in all those interviews, roadside, on the spot, Josh Leeson said nothing about running over a fox. Yet, a couple of days later, we've got a press release, I've got it there, you've seen it, where Gary Davies, head of Wildlife Management Services, says, oh, we've had a driver come forward. His activities put him at the scene. The fox ran out from the left-hand side of the road. It was struck by a left-hand wheel. He got out, saw what it was, didn't want to be involved, and drove off. Absolute poppycock. Absolute bunkum. Now, I mean, I wasn't there at the time. I didn't hear the phone call, but Nick Mooney did. Nick Mooney stood up and defended Gary Davies and said, I overheard the phone call. I know this person rang in and said that. Now, the latest I have, Joshua Leeson is denying that he made that statement to the Depeewee. He's denying, in those words. He did ring the Depeewee. He did say that it was I that ran over the fox, but he didn't describe the left-hand side of the road, or he didn't the heavy wheel or anything like that. He didn't say, I didn't want to be involved in it because of scepticism, etc., etc. You're the investigative journalist. You sort that one out. But I know for a fact that Joshua Leeson did not run over that fox at that side. For a fact. It becomes a giant can of worms. I mean, even Mooney's appraisal of the whole thing. I mean, at the time, the press release and everything said he was only a few minutes away. Him and, I believe it was Mark Mackay, were only minutes away at Epping Forest. Yet, at evidence he gave at the pack inquiry, he said, no, they were in the environs of Launceston, 39 kilometres away. Now, where were they? Were they at Epping or were they at Launceston? I mean, okay, it's a fine point, isn't it? But, I mean, it's still a point that needs to be clarified. Where were they that day? Did they arrive only within a few minutes, or did it take them a long time to get there? It needs to be clarified. I mean, all these things should have come out at the pack inquiry. What disturbs me about the pack inquiry too is I gave names of people that was involved in hoaxing, that was involved in planning of evidence, in fabrication. None of this was followed up. Not 1 ounce of it. So much so.
So a quick go again. Yep.
Yeah. One thing out of all this that I feel, as I've said to you, look, a lot of this information that's been passed on to me may have been passed on to me for ulterior motives. I don't know what people's modus operandi is. I really don't know. It could have been. It could be quite truthful. What I'm saying is to you, it's hearsay. Unless I've got documented evidence to back it up. In some circumstances, yes, I have. I only believe when I'm standing behind these people and I actually see and witness myself from my own eyes that it did happen. It's a bit like, I mean, I've had it put to me at the pack inquiry even where I've had deliberate questions fired at me that have said, so you're saying there are no foxes in Tasmania? Re-knitting was one at the pack inquiry. I can only answer that honestly by saying, I honestly don't know. There have been, since about 1850 or 1860. I mean, but I don't know whether there are any here now. And you name me one person honestly that can prove categorically that they are. Name me one. I mean, I don't know of anyone. There aren't anyone. I mean, that can be absolutely sure. I mean, we may have had eyewitnesses. People saw foxes, believe they saw foxes, maybe saw ginger cats, maybe saw bushy-tailed dogs. I remember one story way back about the time of the funding. It makes me laugh. The chihuahua on the beach that was seen by the guy, the chief, the CEO, the guy at the Advocate, and I won't name him for fear of embarrassment. I went to school with him, walking along to work and saw this fox run under the boardwork at Burnie. Day 1, that was. And to the Advocate's credit, day 2, they did say, no, it was a chihuahua. His name is Tyson. He's the resident dog at the beach hotel. But I always laugh about that. This hit all the newspapers. It was just amazing. Here we are, we have a positive, 100% ridgy-didge, no doubt. Persons familiar with foxes saw the fox run under the boardwalk, under his feet. It was a fox. The next day, it's a chihuahua. I have great difficulty with with a lot of this. So what I'm saying to you, in fairness, Simon, is you really, really, really need to go along with what I've said to you. Maybe it possibly would have been better if you interviewed me first, not merely last. I mean,
I've got a long way to go.
You've got a long way to go.
Yeah.
The difficulty that I have is, as I touched on there a moment ago, with the question of do you believe there are foxes here or not? I do believe there have been foxes here since about 1850 or 60, as I just said. Are there any here now? I don't know. That's my honest... I can't give you a more honest answer than that. What I do know is that there has been a lot of evidence presented, hoaxed, fabricated and speculated to try and prove otherwise. Now, that's where it just doesn't wash with me. In 2001, the top authority on foxes in Australia, without any doubt, Dr. Clive Marks, he would be probably one of the top authorities in the world, but especially foxes under Australian conditions. He stated quite openly in 2001, when this all blew up, we've got a very small window of opportunity here, like 3 years. In 3 years' time, we will either have eradicated them or we will have an established population of foxes. Now, 9 years on, we're still talking about it. The window of opportunity has come and gone. I mean, so why I touch on that point is we have had no evidence whatsoever. We've had singular evidence. A fox appearing on a roadside, a scat appearing in a paddock. But we've had no evidence of breeding foxes, i.e. dens. There has not been a den, a singular den found, not once, in Tasmania. Now, foxes need quite a bit of time, 2 or 3 months actually, from when they begin calling to when the cubs are frequenting the outside of the den. And mate, they leave a lot of evidence. I mean, up at our property at Yea in northeastern Victoria, I've had dogs walk 300 yards to a fox den with their head in the air. Outside that fox den is birds' wings, sheep, wool, rabbits' legs, you name it. I mean, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. And all around that den, what do puppies leave? Puppy poo. I mean, I have great difficulty with it. And foxes in an area the size of Tasmania, while they claim to be highly cryptic, I mean, I don't accept that either. I mean, foxes are opportunists. They become trusting. On a farm, I mean, if you don't pursue them, I mean, they'll trust you. But someone else different walks onto that farm that day, they'll avoid that person or that vehicle like the plague. But, I mean, there's the examples there. I cite 2 examples. Recently I watched a documentary on wolverines in the top, in Yukon and a couple of the other big national parks in the top 48 states, Alaska, etc. I mean, they estimate now they're probably down to 200 wolverines left in the wild. Yet they've been able to successfully photograph them hundreds of times. They've actually been able to trap and radio collar 34 of these separate individuals. I mean, one of the rarest animals on Earth is what we call the snow leopard. Uncia, the Himalayan snow leopard. Operates over an area 60 times the size of Tasmania. Yet scientists are quite able to track it, photograph its footprints, photograph the animal, record sounds from that animal, and yet we can't even find a miserable one singular little fox in 9 years in Tasmania. Can you understand why I have difficulty with it?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, to be fair, to put everyone's side of the argument up, in 9 years, I mean, forget about all the reports, which are biased, in my opinion. The 3 reports that we've had are biased. I mean, the first one, Jack Kinnear, chief entrepreneur of 1080 in Western Australia, Operation Calm, he's the head 1080 man. The next one was CRC Invasive Animals. Well, we all know the story, what their interests there are, and their financial interests with Control Research Centre monies and etc. And then Landcare New Zealand, well, they're industry colleagues of CRC. They talk to one another every day on the phone. They're industry partners. They've got quite a few ventures going together. So I don't think we were going to get a fair, unbiased, as the government claimed, independent review by any of those 3 parties. Having got that off my chest, on this snow leopard issue, we have these people that seem to be able to regularly photograph with trail cameras, regularly find snow leopard kills. I mean, what's the problem here in Tasmania? Haven't we got the competent people on the job? Or are we just pursuing a phantom that may or may not exist? But I go back to my original statement. There have been foxes in Tasmania. I'm not denying that. Since 1850, 1860 odd, there have been individual, separate, singular. I believe pairs were brought in. I mean, in the 30s and 40s, I believe the hunt clubs brought them in. Look, but they're from a gamekeeper, from a very experienced gamekeeper that's had international knowledge of these. I mean, I've had a lot of European experience with the game situation. Been on site, been there, been addressed and advised by some of the best gamekeepers, people that know their business in the world. To establish any animal, it's very, very difficult. This business of once foxes fall below 1 per 40 square kilometres, you don't see them, they become invisible, in my opinion, is absolute nonsense. I mean, all it happens is they become harder to detect because of the lack of numbers. I admit that. That's common sense.
Phillip Island's a good example.
But they don't. They're cryptic. But there's a lot of sightings on Phillip Island. I mean,
not a lot.
Well, I watched that penguin program just recently on Phillip Island, and they seem to be able to photograph them regularly.
Okay.
Yeah, didn't have a problem with that. Watched it intentionally for that purpose, and there was quite a few. Even the TV cameras were able to get foxes in the penguin rookeries on the island. So, I mean, I have great difficulty.
We're getting short of time, so let's move on to the scats.
Yep.
You have information that they have been. I mean, we know about the importation of what they've used. They've supposedly used in training. Can you tell me about ones which have been deliberately left out?
I have an informant that worked with them for a long time. Whether he'll speak to you or not, I don't know. His name is Ardrey Conyon, son-in-law of Jeff Blackmore, head of the Arms Collectors Guild. I've spoken at length to Ardrey about this topic. Yes, they were very, very lackadaisical with their scat approach. There were scats taken out and planted. People were told in the task force, down the rank, where to look for them and where to find them. Now, whether these scats were then sent off to be analysed or not, I don't know. But they were definitely put out there in the landscape. For the purpose of them being found...
Would that be for training purposes? Or for...
I don't know. I wasn't there. The excuse...
That just sounds like...
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. There's several things there don't add up. Ray Sharman up here at Stowport, the Fox Task Force came to him. Now, Mr. Sharman is on the record of making this statement to the Mercury, and he's on the record of making this statement. The Fox Task Force, or Fox Eradication Program, came to him and said, do you mind if we have a look around your property for prime fox habitat? Ray's, and I know him quite well, he rang me and told me this incident. You should know about this.
I've read it, yeah.
Yep. He said, they came along and wanted to look around prime fox habitat. He said, oh, look, I don't really want anyone at the moment. I've got 600 new spring lambs. And they pestered him and said, well, yeah, okay. He said, well, look, you go down to that bush area down there, and that's fine. You can go down there. When they came back, they said, by the way, we've left 2 fox scats on your property. He wasn't very impressed. He didn't realise the magnitude of it at that stage. I really told him to get rid of them then and there. What they said next is what I have great difficulty with, and this is from Mr. Sharman himself. He said, by the way, we have left 2 fox scats on your property, but don't tell anyone. Especially not the dog people that will ring you up in a couple of days. This is meant to be a test for them. Okay. I mean, to get complete authenticity, why would you want to tell the dog people? I concede that. Let them go in cold. Let them not spend all day there looking for something that they know is there. Let them go in cold. But I mean, to me, that's not the way I do things. I mean, that is not even being honest with their own people that work for them. I mean, I have great difficulty with that sort of thing. I don't know how you react to it, but I have great difficulty with it. But anyway, yes, I have that contact, Ardrey Conyon, one of the longest service members with the fox eradication program. Started back in the time of John McConnell, Peter Mooney and all those. Yes, he's left them. He is reluctant to talk because I believe he's gone to another government job. But he has spoken to me. I have a written email, several written emails from him, which discloses what I just told you. Now, those scats, he said to me, we put them up along dam walls, we put them up certain pine plantation roads, and we told them where to look for them. He said, I even personally took scats out of the freezer myself and put them down. Now, how you pursue that is entirely up to you as an investigative journalist. I've given you his number previously. I mean, you can track him down.
I'll try.
He is reluctant to speak because of this government job that he has now. And I don't blame him.
He's with guns, isn't he?
Well, he may be with guns. I'm not sure. Anyway, so well, there's a bit of a tie up there with the government, isn't he?
Well, slightly.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, what I do on the scat issue is, look, I'll be frank. I was made aware. I've got a written email there. I was made aware in April 2008 that all was not well with these scats. Dr. Graham Hall will back this up. He said to me, he alerted me that, look, these dogs are useless. He said, we've had them on the mainland looking for fox cats and they've just basically turned up their nose at fox cats per se. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it started, he said, we shot a fox for them and they ignored it. And I said, well, okay, Graham, that's all right. They're not fox dogs, they're fox cat detector dogs. Oh, he said, well, we used to train them originally, he said, in little plastic capsules with holes drilled in them. He said, and the funny thing was, when we put the fox cats out in the capsules, the dogs did exactly what they were supposed to do. Walked up to the scat, sat, give me a good O. No, that's the Jack Russell back. No, you can't come in, Bonnie. And he said, but, he said, the problem I have, he said, when we put the plastic scats out on their own, the dogs found the plastic capsules out on their own, the dogs found them and sat by them. No scat in the capsules.
They still would have smelled like scat.
No, fresh, clean capsules with no scat in them. That was the experiment they did. Double check with Dr. Hall if you wish.
Yeah, you told me the story.
Yep. Okay, good. Please. Well, there's one bit verified.
Wouldn't go on the record though.
No, well, but I'll go on the record.
Yeah.
I've got written emails to back it up.
Yep.
Then he said, you're aware they're bringing these scats in, aren't you? And I said, well, what? What do you mean they're bringing them in? Yeah, he said they're bringing them in from the mainland. Eskifuls of them. Really? I started to get a bit of interest then. So I spoke at length to one of my friends who was an advisor to Robert Brown MP and the New South Wales Legislative Council. He made some inquiries through the Game Council for me. And he said, yep, I'll send you down a copy of the ad. I think I've passed that ad on to you. You've got a copy of it. And the gathering instructions, be careful, hide at its risk, must only be with gloves, da-da-da-da-da. I sat on that for quite a while. I passed it on to Ivan Dean, but I sat on it myself. We asked questions in the Parliament. It was emphatically denied, absolutely emphatically denied that they were even bringing scats in. Then I get this letter from Senator Abetz that had been passed on, written to Abetz by David Llewellyn, that said, oh yeah, we've been bringing them in since late 2007. Well, we produced this evidence, and of course there was an immediate, well, we've been bringing scats in, but only to train dogs. How many scats have you brought in? To date about 600. Really? I train English pointers up to national field trial standard. What I do know is, with quarantine dogs, you've got to occasionally refresh them for fruit, vegetables and all that sort of thing. But my English pointers out there, when they detect a scent, when they're being trained as junior puppies at 9, 10, 12 months of age, they never, ever, for the length of their lives, forget a scent. But I will concede, with the rarity of finding a fox cat or finding illegal contraband in people's luggage, there is a boredom period, and a good training method is, I concede, to hot these dogs up. I concede all that, but I have great difficulty that you need 600 or 700 scats to train a couple of 3 fox detector dogs, foxcat detector dogs. A lot of things don't add up. I know I sound very sceptical. I know I sound very cynical. But would there be any other reason why I'm not? Having got into it as deeply as I have. I mean, look, I've given up a lot of my time on this. This has cost me a small fortune. Seriously. I mean, why? I mean, it isn't a vendetta. It isn't to prove a point. Well, it is to prove a point, to get to the truth. To get to the truth of all this. But more so, let's know exactly what we're dealing with. If you've got a problem that's a tangible problem, you can deal with it. You can't deal with fairies at the bottom of the garden, mate. They don't exist. Okay, I'm going to have to wrap it up very shortly. Yep. But, I mean, if there are any questions you can think of, just quickly fire them out.
The only thing we haven't touched upon is the baiting program.
Oh. I was afraid you were going to say that. My pet hate. I'll go on the record again. I did on State Line. I have with journalists on the mainland. If they give up the 1080 baiting program tomorrow, which is obviously not working, or 9 years on, we wouldn't be talking about it. If they gave up the 1080 baiting program tomorrow, I would get off their back. Get off their back. Because I believe it's the greatest. I believe it's just, we'll never know really how much damage it's done. All this nonsense of, it doesn't affect natives and all that, is a load of crap. A tiger quoll has a resistance of 1.85 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. Fox baits are 3 milligrams of 1080. We poison macropods every day with an 0.14% solution. Every day of the week, macropods are being poisoned with carrot, apple, corn, 0.14% baits. Devils even, 4.24 milligrams per kilogram. If that Jack Russell doesn't stop banging on that door... Excuse me just a moment.
Probably a good idea, because, yeah.
Go away! She wants to be let in. I'm not going to let her in. So, I mean, yeah, every day, I mean, macropods are poisoned with this less than 1% solution. I mean, we heard in the early days from Llewellyn, it's in the Hansard, passed on to him by his advisors into Peewee, that, I think, a devil would have to find 30 baits, dig them up, consume them in one night. So, according to my mathematics, it takes 45 milligrams of 1080 to kill one devil. Does it? I mean, that's what they're saying. I mean, it's nonsense. No one knows the damage it's doing, even like to the reproductive systems of these animals that are not fatally dosed. What I do know is we had some 5 or 6 resident devils here in the close proximity of the... I mean, they used to come to wallaby carcasses and that on the 80 odd acres that we've got here. I mean, they poisoned out over here in the plantation, and down here, the devils have disappeared. Now, I mean, how I know they're not there is because they frequently used to get in my walk-in box traps that I've got set for cats. I'll show you one as we're leaving, what an effective method that it is. So, I have great difficulty there that the baiting, I've said this before, I liken this baiting campaign as a serious blunder only equalled, believe it or not, by the bounty put on the thylacine by the government of the day. Look where that got us. I mean, the other story that has been put forward is you don't find 1080 poisoned foxes. Absolute bollocks. Absolute bollocks. The other property we have up at Yea, the manager up there is not a shooter, as I stated earlier. He does, against our will, poison with fox-off, commercially bought fox-off baits. I've put foxes out of their misery in the paddocks up there, shot them, staggering around the paddock in the last throes of 1080 poisoning. Found not one but dozens of carcasses after it. If he puts out 120 baits, we could reliably find 10 or a dozen fox carcasses. Okay, much higher density there, I concede that. Much higher density. I concede that. But to say that you don't find poisoned fox carcasses is a lie. It's an absolute, total, darn lie. And I resent lying when it comes to... I mean, why are they saying that? I mean, it's on the Peewee's website. You do not find 1080 baited carcasses. Well, I can tell you, you do. I mean, it's absolute nonsense. Once again, cloak and dagger stuff. I hate it. I hate it. Up there's a much higher density of foxes, I admit, and so much so I've personally shot 25 foxes in one night, from dark till daylight the next morning. Okay, there's big numbers there, and I mean, but they're not these invisible or these cryptic creatures that have the ability to turn invisible. And with the experienced shooters that we have here in Tasmania, especially the professional shooters, but some good people who know their properties, farmers and the like, that have got big acreages, it's an insult to their intelligence, an insult to their intelligence, to say that they wouldn't notice a fox if it was on their property. I mean, are you aware of fox's eye shine?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, really bright yellow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
unmistakable.
Like
I can pick them out at 300, 400, 500 metres. I'll show you my spotlight setup as we go. I've got 3 separate spotlights. I've got a roof-mounted one that I use. I've got a rifle-mounted one that I use. I've got a handheld one which I have the facility of turning down to a very, very low impact, even with a filter on it, so you can walk up on them. I've personally walked into a paddock in Yea at lambing time, personally, and shot 4 foxes, one after the other. Bang, there, another one sitting up over there, 100 metres away on its haunches looking at me, bang, another one walking down a gully towards me, bang, and another one sitting over on the other bank, 4. Walked into it and have no difficulty with stating that it's quite frequently happens up there. So I have this great difficulty. I just have great difficulty with all this nonsense being mixed up with my own personal experience of hard, cold facts. Great difficulty. I don't think anyone would forgive me for being a bit sceptical. I mean, I've had a lot to do with foxes on the mainland. I've had especially a lot to do with them on game farms in Europe. I spent 3 months once on a large game farm up in Friuli province, which is right up on the near the it's not far from Venice, but it's on nearly on the Yugoslav border up there, and a huge game farm, and foxes everywhere. Huge populations of pheasants too. We used to drive around of a night in a vehicle, shooting them with a shotgun as they crossed. No fences there, all just your tracks are just little mounds that are made up between the corn paddocks. Most of the pheasants there are not vulnerable in that they sleep up trees of a night, different to what they do here. One of the problems here being hand raised and hand reared, they're forever kept in low cages, which is a big mistake. If you want to be successful with pheasants, you've got to train them very early as little poults to go up in trees or up on perches, off the ground. Otherwise they get eaten. Yep. So I have great difficulty in having had first-hand experience in Europe. I mean, they are European red foxes after all. They haven't changed in hundreds of thousands of years. I have a great problem with believing that Tasmanian foxes are quite different, because they aren't.
Yep, I agree. One more thing.
Yes?
I just mentioned one name, Peter Williams.
Oh dear. Yes. Can I mention his nickname?
I know what it is, Rattus.
Yes.
Black Rat.
Peter. Yeah, I've had a bit of personal experience with Peter. Actually, when he was manager of the branch down there in Hobart, I was having trouble with cats up home, and I chased Peter for ages and ages, and I think it was Michelle Mosley I was talking to at the time. I think Michelle was handling all Peter's affairs at the time. And I believe that I complained to them about the problems I was having with feral cats and the lack of action I was getting from the government, the rangers, etc., the Peewee, etc. No one wanted to know. And finally, Peter rang me one day and he didn't get me. He left a message on my answering service and said, Mr. Rist, he said, I believe that you're having trouble up there with a feral cat, singular. I left a very discourteous message on his answering service back because I could never get to him to actually. I did talk to him personally, but I mean, on about 100 attempts, once every 100 attempt to talk to him. Yeah, Peter Williams. I believe part of the problem out here, while we're on that issue, with the sighting of the fox down here and the photo that appeared in the Advocate under Gotcha. You've seen the Gotcha photo. Now, I have great difficulty with that, and I'm going to have to bring my good friend Brian Green into this again because Brian had just inherited the Depeewee portfolio. Yes? A girl that went to work for him as his PA was responsible for producing the fox photo a couple of weeks after she went to work with Brian. But she said she'd had the photo since about 2001. Great difficulty there. Parks descended on her like a ton of bricks. Fox Task Force. She would not cooperate with them. You know the lady I'm talking about, don't you? You know her name?
Yeah.
Yes. She was the endorsed Labor candidate for Braddon a couple of elections ago.
Yep.
Yeah, and she wouldn't cooperate. She wouldn't give them the negatives either side of the photo. She wouldn't take them and show them where the photograph was taken. I believe, once again, this is information relayed to me by someone within the Depeewee, that photo wasn't even taken in Tasmania. Apparently there was identifiable trees in the background other than the pine trees, which were not Tasmanian species. So, no, that fox wasn't taken, a photo wasn't taken in the Aldina pine plantation. And I think Leone may have been having a little shot at Peter Williams, seeing you bring his name up. I think that this might have been a little bit of a spiteful, useful application.
I believe she said that publicly.
Yes, she may well have done. So yeah, there you are. Yes, I am aware of Peter Williams. I am very aware of his history. Yes, I am. I don't want to go into that here and now. I do know I had great difficulty in dealing with him in the early days of the game farm. That's all I'm going to say.
Sure. Okay. Yep.
But Leone Batchelor, I mean, Leone, look, she was a new kid on the block. She went there as Greeny's PA in 2003.
Her husband used to work
with
Peter Williams.
Used to work in quarantine. Exactly right. And was sacked, and he blamed Peter Williams for it. There may have been a bit of payback there. Look, can I close this by saying, during the height of my shooting career, at the height of my shooting career in the 70s and 80s, I moved with a lot of influential people. I've represented Australia 4 times. I've been overseas many, many occasions. I've been involved in shooting. I become somewhat of a bit of a legend, I guess, down through the Midlands. I had people volunteer me information. Amazing stuff. I've had people walk up to me and say, you know, bloody Parks and Wildlife, I know how we could PISS them off. Bring in a fox carcass and dump it on the side of the road. Or ring up and tell them we've seen a fox. And I said, you idiots, do you know what you're doing? You're playing right into their hands. Don't be so stupid. Don't do that. You know, it's like when I bought the 3 fox carcasses across prepared for taxidermy. Brian, after the long weekend in June, Brian Green was coming up home. I think it was the weekend, I shot 30 odd foxes that weekend. As late as I was coming back on the Spirit Monday night, long weekend, I shot one Monday lunchtime. I had them all prepared for taxidermy, completely removed. I knew Greenie was coming up that morning. He'd rang me the previous Thursday night, said, me and Rex are coming up, see you Tuesday morning. Thought, I'm going to have a bit of fun with you, Greenie. He knew I was going up to Yea. Didn't really click with him first up. When he got there, 8:30, I said, yeah, you better come and have a look at these, Brian. Took him out and showed him these 3 Reynards laying in the game fridge. My God, he nearly went into orbit. He just about went into orbit. He said, I had a bit of a joke. I shot him down to Evandale last night. He said, get the media here, get everybody. Oh dear, it was so funny. And I said, no, mate. And then it dawned on him, he said, you, expletive, he said, you've just come back from the mainland. I said, yeah, I brought him back on the boat this morning. I said, in fact, I got off the boat at 6:30. Here I am, 8:20 back at Blessington. Here's your darn foxes. One of your fox dogs near sat on the bag. He said, what? I said, look, the guy I was with was a bit nervous about bringing... I'd already spoken to George Savalvi, head of Australian Customs in Hobart, Quarantine Customs in Hobart. He's a very good taxidermist. He said, no, as long as you've got them prepared, no gut content in them, nothing in them, you're right as rain. If you have a problem, here's my mobile number. My colleague that I was with at Devonport was very nervous about... He said, you'll lose them. I said, no, I won't. Got George's number here. Oh, he said, we'll see. Comes over the loudspeaker at 6 o'clock, you know, you'll be met by quarantine, dogs, etc. He said, you'll lose them. I said, no, I won't. The lady with the little beagle comes round to his window and says, excuse me, sir, any fruit or vegetables on board? No, he said, no, which was as good as saying, something's wrong. She said, oh, do you mind if I have a look in the back? And I thought, oh my God, here we go. They're laying in a big orange garbage bag, sealed garbage bag, with ice, fresh, not frozen, with ice blocks in with them. My old fox coat, my old coat with fox blood and hair or white, was laying in the back. For some reason, I don't know why it was laying out there, but it was. And this big, and all our gear's in the back. We hadn't picked up our rifles at the time because they have to be picked up through once you're cleared. And she said, oh, yeah, okay, I'll have a bit of a look in there. No fruit of... I said, no, I haven't got any fruit or vegetables. She actually squeezed the bag, the orange garbage bag. I swear she squeezed the bag that the foxes were in. The dog was sitting there, just looking a little beagle, dopey looking beagle. Much as they give me a good hope, but not sniffing the bag or the coat. I could not, honestly, till this day, I still can't believe it. Anyway, when Greenie turned up, I said, oh, yeah, that's how good your new fox dogs are. You've just spent 30... All the quarantine dogs were supposed to have done this, upgrading to fox scent. $35,000 was in the media that it cost. I said to Greenie, because I loved having a shot at him, we're good friends, but I loved having a shot at him. I said, this is how good your fox dogs are. One nearly sat on the bag this morning. He said, oh, you're joking. I said, no. My God. Anyway, he denies to this day that he rang Alex Schaap. But some time afterwards, who should turn up? Maybe they're in Launceston doing something else. Maybe they wanted to come out and see the minister wasn't talking too much about cats or what the minister was up. I don't even know how they knew Minister Green was at my property. I haven't got a clue how they knew he was there. As far as I'm concerned, Greenie was coming up on a private thing. But anyway, they turned up. Him and Tony Dell, Alex Schaap and Tony Dell, turned up out of the blue, uninvited. And I thought, what are you doing here? Anyway, Greenie took him out the front, made him a coffee, got talking. Yeah, well, how are those fox dogs going, Alec? Because obviously Alec is only answerable to the Minister, Brian Green. Alex was head of biosecurity. Well, he went into verbal diarrhea. Oh, Brian, you wouldn't get a hair in at the moment. You wouldn't get a fox hair in. He said, we're doing random checks on the airports. He said, the dogs are up to speed. Everything's wonderful. He said, you would not get a fox hair in. Well, Greenie kept... I thought, oh, my God. I don't like the way this is going. Because I could see what was coming. In the finish, he said to Alex and Tony, come out here, I want to show you something. Well, he swung the doors open, just like I did with him initially, and said, oh, excuse me, it'll... So, no, I don't want to take it, Jack. Jack, I'm still doing the interview, Cobber. And I didn't want it to work out this way, but he took Alex out and said, well, you better have a look at these, mate. He said, see those 3 foxes there? They came over on the boat last night. One of your dogs almost sat on the bag. Well, Alex Schaap's never forgiven me. He reckons I'm innocent. All I did was show him to Greenie. I swear, on the Holy Bible, I had no intention of Schaap seeing them. He'd be the last bloke I'd want to see him. Anyway, because of the problems that he could cause. So, Greenie, I said, you rat. Anyway, Schaap was that wild, Schaap couldn't even speak. He was that angry. He was livid. He believed I'd set him up. And, oh dear. He left there. That afternoon he rang my partner and said, well, we're going to book him for something or other. I said to Greenie, listen, you've got me in a real bad spot, mate. He's going to book me. He said, what for? I said, well, he said he'd find something, which he never said to me. He relayed to my partner, Susie. And she said, well, he'll get you for something. I went to Greenie. I said, well, you've really tipped the can on me, mate. I was angry. I said, you've tipped the can on me. And he said, you will not hear anything about it. That is the end of it all. He can't book you. You haven't broken any law. Now, strange at that time, even though the Animal Control Health Act 1995 has some regulations in there pertaining, it was never ever pursued or followed up. I was assured at the time by the head of quarantine services, and I mean George Savalvi was head of quarantine and customs and that in Hobart, that no, there was no law to stop you as long as they didn't have any fruit or vegetables in them, as long as they didn't have any possibility like offal, heart, liver, heartworm or liver worms like hydatidus in the liver, that they couldn't at all touch me. He said people bring fox skins all the time, which brings me to another topic very quickly and briefly. When I got this freedom of information, I actually wrote a letter to the Mercury in 2008 explaining that very situation with Brian Green, Rex Bramage, Tony Dell, Alex Schapp, dated it and said it was 2003 when this occurred. When I get this FOI, I find a letter from Matt Marrison to the General CEO of the Mercury, one Gary Bailey, demanding an immediate retraction of this letter that I'd written at Christmas 2008, and saying that I faced prosecution. I'll show you the letter, I mean, it's there. That I was misleading the public, and, you know, he was trying to make an event that happened in 2003 look like it only happened yesterday. I got very snaky. I actually rang Gary Bailey and spoke to him, sent him a copy of the letter. The letter was never withdrawn, which is proof in itself. That Marrison made a real, and I made Brian Green very aware of this, of what exactly Marrison had done, and I was not happy at all. I mean, the argument I look at there was, if Marrison wanted to correct me, why didn't he correct me personally? Why didn't he ring me? Or why didn't he email me? Or why didn't he say, Mr. Rist, you are wrong? No, he wanted to score some mileage with the Mercury. He wanted to discredit me with the Mercury.
That's also his job as a PR guy for Task Force to say, oh yeah, you shouldn't be doing this.
Well, but make it clear.
Yeah.
Make it current.
Yeah.
Don't use me as an example of something that happened in 2003 that you infer is current. And the letters quite clearly explain that. I mean, my letter to the Mercury is there, dated 2008, Christmas 2008. Quite clearly I'd refer to as an event in 2003, the people there that were involved. He writes in 2009, in February 2009, and says immediately have a retraction done on this letter that Mr. Rist wrote at Christmas 2008. Basically, or else. You can view it. When we're finished here, you can have a look at it.
I think I've seen it, yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, yeah, okay. So there's been a lot of cloak and daggerish stuff going on with all this. I have no doubt at the end of the day that if I was protecting my own job, I possibly would be a bit opportunistic too. And I'm not going to really go down that road any further. Very good. Anything further?
I think that's it. I think we've covered it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope that I've been of some assistance to you.
You have indeed.